Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to On the Bright Line podcast, Tales from Recovering Food Addicts from the perspective of a physician, a therapist, and an off-the-wall storyteller. We are not affiliated or endorsed by Brightline Eating, and all content presented in this podcast represents our personal opinions and does not represent medical, nutritional, or psychological professional advice. On today's episode, we are going to talk about coping with the holidays. So I think this is going to be timely, obviously, for the time of year that we're in right now. But also, as we come upon this holiday season, there's going to be a lot of pitfalls to navigate for those of us that are living the BLE lifestyle. So I think we just wanted to talk through some strategies that we've come up with, some stories that we have about maybe past pitfalls and that sort of thing. So I'm actually going to start because I think everybody's going to find this very humorous. When I first decided to join BLE on November 30th, 2022, I said, I am not giving up my Christmas treat. I'm going to have my Christmas treat. I'm not going to give it up. And I was like, I was adamant like that. And my birthday is in February. So I was also like, okay, I'll also do my birthday. So I had already planned to cheat day one. So just like, let's lay that out there.
Right up
front. Right up front. I was like, nope, I'm not.
I already have an exit strategy.
I do have an exit strategy. Not going to do it. And so it was interesting as 26 days between November 30th and December 25th when the Christmas treat happened, is that I got so invested in the program and having the identity of no sugar and no flour that I was even able to make that for my entire family and not eating any of it on Christmas morning because I decided honestly in that moment on that day that it wasn't worth it. And I was maybe a little scared. I would say there's probably a little fear there because I had gone through the detox. I was like, I am not sure what that's going to do for me because this Christmas treat has both sugar and flour in it. And so I was like, I am not sure what that's going to do to me. And do I want to feel bad? And I remember my mom and I talking about it. She's like, oh, you'll probably feel really icky because my mom had stopped sugar at one point in her life for a long time and knew that like the ill effects of going on and off sugar. Yeah. And she's like, you're probably just going to feel really icky all day if you do it. So you probably, so anyway, so long story short, that was how I coped with my first holiday. And so I think that, the lesson there is that I just, number one, it is overcomable because I had decided that I was going to cheat day one and I did not. I still have not broken my lines. Thank you. I feel very blessed that I can say that, but I also, I just know that like my mentality did a major shift in between the day I signed up and December 25th. So.
But that speaks to what you had originally, that story that you had told yourself in your head about what you had to have for it to be a, air quotes, good holiday.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that
was part of the tradition. Right. I couldn't give up the tradition. And I'm sorry if anybody can hear sprinkles snoring in the background. It's really loud it's now.
On.
Oh,
we need to put a picture of
sprinkles.
Yes,
we're going to put a picture of Sprinkles up because you guys all need to know she's the unofficial fourth member of the podcast
queen
crew.
Bee, right?
Anyway, sorry, back to it. But yes, no, because that was our tradition. Right. That was my tradition growing up. Christmas morning, this is what we ate.
Right.
And that the thought of not being able to have that, there was, like you said, there was so much emotion around, well, how can it be Christmas without that?
Right. And one of the exercises that I would encourage everyone to do, whether it's talking about a holiday tradition or birthdays or what have you, is sit down probably at least a month in advance if you can. Sit down
before November 30th.
Before November 30th, right? Sit down with your family and kind of go around the table and look at everyone and say, okay, so it wouldn't be Thanksgiving without, XYZ, and kind of see what people name, right? Or it wouldn't be this holiday without, right? And it's really interesting because what people often name for me instead of a specific food item is, well, it wouldn't be that tradition without Aunt Martha around the table, or it wouldn't be that tradition, right? Like I am a British person, and so around the Christmas holidays we do the poppers with the little Christmas hats, right? And so that for me is so special. And really, when you sit down and nail down, okay, how can we make these holidays more BLE? Right? Because we could still have, the turkey at Thanksgiving, or we could, right? I remember what did we do the first year that I was up here with you guys? What did we make?
Yeah, we did
for
BLE.
Thanksgiving?
I mean, BLE. We did turkey.
Right.
I just didn't have the stuffing.
Right.
Right. I did a green bean casserole with just green beans and mushrooms and without the creamy mushroom sauce.
Yeah. Right.
Soup or whatever. Yeah, we just kind of modified a salad
Right.
and we still had some of the other things for people that weren't on the plan. We talked about I asked Robin to bring
Right.
something that had sugar in it for
Right.
my mother-in-law because she wasn't on the plan, and
Right.
that's a really one of her favorite items, right? So we made sure that we had that item. Yeah. I mean, Susan Pierce Thompson talks a lot about run the experiments. Run your own experiment. When you
Right.
talk about, I want to have that XYZ food item. Now, my husband is not a 10 on the susceptibility scale. He's like a 7, maybe a 6, right? And we do BLE together, and we've been in maintenance together. And he said, at Thanksgiving, I'm going to have a piece of pie.
Right.
Every year I want to have that. I'm like, okay. He had that. He ran that experiment. Didn't trigger him. Never had anything else. Went right back on plan. It didn't cause a catastrophe. But I know Susan Pierce Thompson, who is a 10 on the susceptibility scale,
Right.
talks about her experiments with coming off the plan and how horrible she felt
Yeah.
and how horrible it was to get back on it. I'm a 10.
Right.
I don't want to take that experiment. I'm going
Right.
to trust that someone else has already done that experiment and go with
Right.
their results.
Right.
I don't think I'll have the same result as my husband, and I don't want to risk it.
Yeah.
Just like Meagan, early in my plan, I had a whole, I'm going to have a certain thing to drink. When I'm at maintenance, I'm going to let myself have that once a
Oh,
month.
right,
That was the story
right.
I told myself because I couldn't imagine never having that drink again. And so, and very similarly, once I got to that point, I mean, I lost about 70 pounds and now I'm on maintenance. I don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want it. The thing that it did for me before was because it was filling a dopamine, it was giving me a dopamine hit.
Yep.
And I don't get my dopamine from oral intake anymore. And so I don't even crave it anymore. So it's so weird. So if you're early in this program and you're thinking, oh my God, I can do this, but that one thing, like I just can't give it up for the holidays, or this is my special thing. And it's like, very likely you're not going to crave it the same way that you're craving it before you get on
But
the plan.
let's talk about this. Let's talk about the mentality of I can never have something ever again.
right.
Because I think that that's really important to talk
Yeah.
about how to frame that emotionally. In my mind, I'm just not going to have it today.
Yeah.
Right. And I know Susan tells that story about the old alcoholic guy.
Right.
That would come in
Every
every day
day.
and
I'm just
say,
not gonna
I'm
have
not
a
going to have a drink
Right.
today. I may drink tomorrow, but I'm not going
Right.
to drink today.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that the mentality of like the future tripping, you know,
Yeah.
about, okay, during the holiday, and like I did it. I mean, I did it. Like I said, oh, I'm going to break my lines. Like I said it, but instead of taking that now, the mentality is like, well, today I'm not going to have that. And like, I don't know what's going to happen 2 years from now, but I can pretty much guarantee this holiday season, I probably won't be partaking in any of that. I will be keeping my lines. But again, like keeping that present mentality of like, I don't have to do this for the rest of my life, or I don't have to think about this for the rest of my life. I just have to think about it today.
Yeah.
And that, I think that shift in your mentality really helps with the overwhelmingness
Yeah.
of that emotion
Oh, yeah.
around the, whatever that emotion is around that food. And so instead of, saying like, oh, well, this was a special treat that I always did with this person, and now I can't do that ever again. Because I've heard people in the program say that, but I can't imagine never having that ever again. And I was like, you don't have to imagine that.
Yeah.
All you have to do is say, I'm not going to do it today.
Right.
And so I think that, the holidays too, is that yes, like, I think there will come a time, like you said, when it won't even be a thought anymore, because those cravings will be gone. But that could take a long time for some people. And,
I'm even at a point where I can prepare food for other people that's NMF, and it does not trigger me. And so, but then I'm in a weird place of like, am I now a food pusher?
Yes.
Right.
And it's funny because my
yes.
kids are both really low on the susceptibility scale, which is really a blessing, I think is a wonderful thing. And, when we had our last holiday event and we talked about what kind of things we were going to have, and they were like, Mom, we don't really need that.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a home that was very deprived of all sweets. Right? I overreacted by wanting to make sweets for everybody all the time because I wish that had been done for me. Right? And so I projected that out onto everyone else and thought that was something everyone loved.
Yeah.
And it turns out, they just actually want to be together. They don't really need that food to have a good holiday.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I think and then on the flip side though, again, like, my mother-in-law, she's not on BLE and she doesn't need to be on BLE. She doesn't want to be on BLE, right?
That's right.
And so, she has very close ties to certain foods for holidays. And I want to do those things for her. And I was going to tell you this story about my grandparents when they were in their early 50s, went on Weight Watchers, and they stayed on it the rest of their life. They lost their weight and they kept it down on Weight Watchers whole rest of their life. And my grandfather lived to be 104, and my grandmother died in her early 90s. So, but they were kind of preachy about it. And I remember going to their house for Thanksgiving. We didn't live near them, so we didn't often get together with them for the holidays. So when we did, it was a big deal. My aunt and uncle came, we came, and so we had this big family gathering. And I just remember, walking in, and she's set up the food that she's cooked. And it's like these little bowls. Here's just the peas. Here's just this little bowl of mashed potatoes. I mean, it's like a oversized soup bowl with all the mashed potatoes for like
everybody.
10 people. Yeah. You know what I mean? 10 grown people. And, and so she's doling out these like in our estimation, pediatric portions of, you know what I mean, of the holiday meal. I mean, it's the holiday meal, but it's like, wow, you know what I mean? Because we're not on this Weight Watchers plan with her, right? And I just remember my aunt and uncle, said, we need to go get something right after dinner. And they went to Burger King. Oh, you know what I mean? And had a whole Burger King meal because they were really hungry. And so I think that's the flip side of it. And we've talked about this before, just with, with eating with others or whatever. But I think you have to kind of balance between, again, other people that aren't on this plan don't need to be on this plan. You don't need to make them feel guilty about their portions. You don't have to be a food pusher and cook things that weren't asked to be cooked, right? And, Susan says, you don't have to cook them at all. If you're not comfortable touching any of that, but it's going to be present, you can just order it pre-made, ask someone else to bring it. That's a very smart strategy. Yeah. But I also think, again, just you can make the holiday for you about connecting with those people that you love and let them deal with whatever the food is for them.
Right.
You don't need to put everybody on your meal plan.
Right.
Right. But you just need to make sure you're on your meal plan. And we talked about making sure that you are advocating for yourself, that you are, making sure that you are eating what you need to eat.
Right.
But, you can thread the needle. You can decide that you're going to make that holiday about your connections and let other people decide what the holiday is for them, whether it's about food or connection.
And that's a really powerful thing, right? To look at what is your self-talk about holidays and the food that either is or isn't present. Because, and again, that kind of speaks back to what Meagan was talking about, the never again, self-talk of, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to have that thing again. Because when we tell that narrative, it's awful that I will never be able to have that thing again.
Yeah.
And what I've heard each of you saying is, it's actually not awful that I'm not eating that thing again.
It's not.
Right? Which is the power of the language and the narrative that we tell ourselves about what it means to eat or not eat a certain food. And when we can flip into that empowering mindset of, I'm not going to eat that today.
Yeah. But also it's the chemical part of not being addicted. We're not addicted to sugar and flour anymore because, we could go back to it if we tried to eat it, but we're not locked into the cycle of being in a craving setting. And so I think that makes a huge difference.
That knowing for some people that are new to the program, knowing that will come. Yeah. Right? That it will get easier. You will get to a point where not having that food is not as overwhelming as it seems.
It's not a physical sensation anymore.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I think too, holidays really should be about being with people you love or celebrating the holiday itself. You know, if you're in a spiritual tradition or whatever the holiday is about,
Sure.
right? If it's Thanksgiving, it should be about being thankful. And, you know, spend some energy being creative about what kind of new traditions could I create for my family that center around this holiday that would be fun and engaging in things my kids would remember or my family will remember that aren't about the food. Because there's so many things, you know, you can do.
There are, but what you said was being with people you love, and for a lot of people, I will make sure to put up my dysfunctional family bingo.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about that. That's the elephant in the room,
because
right? Some holidays are awful for all the wrong reasons, right?
My running joke is that as a therapist, I could charge $200 an hour for you know, Thanksgiving morning therapy sessions, and get calls from people in the bathroom going, "I'm gonna kill Aunt Susie today."
And this is a lot of times like this, and the coping is the food. The holiday is already centered around food.
Right.
Yeah.
You have a lot of family stress,
Yep.
and then you're stuck with all that food there, and that's the easiest thing to go to. And that comes back to it. We've talked in earlier podcasts
Yep.
about emergency action plan,
Yep.
you know, planning for that, because it can be really awful. Some people's family dysfunction is terrible. I had one friend that, you know, just talked about like, wow, I have to go to this family function and we're going to be there, you know, for whatever, 3 days. And, you know, this is kind of what I'm anticipating happening.
Yeah.
And so we kind of talked through it and I was like, well, do you have to stay at their house? Well, maybe not. Oh, you know what you should do?
Right.
You know, that's right near the forest. Why don't you go get a B&B cabin in the forest and go stay over, take your camper or go stay over there.
Yep.
And then you just tell them, oh, we got to go. Like we checked into our place and, oh yeah, then that's your escape hatch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Then you can have that. And then you're sneaking in a fun, indulgent thing
Yeah.
Right.
that you're getting to do in and around this otherwise kind of stressful holiday experience.
Yeah.
So.
I am a big fan of, and I know she talks about this in the book, the bathroom is like the best escape.
Yeah.
You know, no one's going to be pounding on the door of the bathroom.
Nope.
You can
Well,
run away to the bathroom.
unless you have
unless you have
toddlers.
kids. Yes, true. Excellent point. Right, but that idea of saying, you know, I need to literally stand up from this table and walk away and go to the bathroom and work my emergency plan or text my village for some support.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's, again, we were talking about, you know, planning for stressful events. And I think that's a really important thing to text your village and say, at noon today, I am going to my mother's house and oh my gosh, you know, I'm
Yeah.
going to
And
need
do you want me to call you so you can get interrupted? Because I can do that.
Right, right. I can have a crisis. This is my crisis call.
Can be,
I
can
gotta
be your
work-
interruption.
I got a work call. I got to take this.
Gotta go.
Oh, it's going to take a couple hours to sort this out. I'll be outside.
Right.
Yeah.
But being willing to know going in, and I think the problem is we all hope, we all wish that our families would really show up so that we could kind of have that Norman Rockwell holiday. And the problem is that, you know, when you put a microscope on people, when you add stress, they do not rise to the occasion. They default to their factory settings.
Yeah.
And so you have to go in expecting that, you know, what do I usually get from my mother at food-centric holidays? I get XYZ.
Yeah.
Right. And so going in knowing that, saying, no, it's reasonable to expect that this person is not going to be supportive of me eating BLE. Right. There's going to be some, you know, aggressive knife and fork action from my mother when I say no to this food item. And how will you manage that? So having that plan of how are you going to manage that and what's, who are your people?
And then, you know, at the social gathering, is there someone who is safer to be around that you could just spend more time with?
Yep.
You know, get to know that person better,
Yep.
spend more time with that person, extricate yourself if you need to. Yeah.
I think the moral of the story here is that support, plan,
Yeah.
maybe make non-food plans. I think that's the other thing. Try and find non-food centric things to do to celebrate. And yeah, I think, you know, I think the traditions, the old traditions maybe need to be old, and we need to let them go of that it has to be centered around the food. And I think that just knowing that that food didn't serve me and didn't serve my health journey, and that I'm so much healthier now for not eating sugar and flour anymore, that I don't want to go back. Like, I don't have that desire to go back now in my life. And so, my hope is that if you're out there and you're new and you're like, I don't think I'll ever get there, that you can just do that one day at a time mentality, because I think that is the easiest way to get through. Don't be like me and say you're going to cheat right off the bat, because geez, that was gross. I'm just kidding. It was where I was at, honestly. I was very resistant, and I have a very strong rebel part. So that is who I am.
Yep.
Everyone is nodding and agreeing. So, we really hope that, this helps maybe with some of the coping during the holiday time. We'll do a future podcast about, pressures from people when it comes to the food we eat, and, pressures against the program, because I think that's another really good topic that kind of goes hand in hand with this coping with the holiday stress. So hopefully this was helpful, and that's all for our episode today. We'll talk to you guys soon.